Hi everyone, welcome to our presentation on transforming curriculum design through OER creation. Thompson Rivers University campuses are on the traditional lands of Tecumseh-Secwepemc and Tacool within Secwepemc-Ulu. These are the traditional and unceded territories of the Secwepemc peoples. We recognize and affirm that the region TRU serves also extends into the territories of the St'át'imc, Clackamas, Sokotan, Nunavut, Calgay, and Métis communities within these territories. This is a place on which teaching, learning, and knowledge sharing has happened within and between communities since time immemorial. We appreciate the time you're taking to learn from us today. And this is the team that's going to be offering our presentation today. My name is Catherine Dischke-Hansel. I'm the Director of the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching at TRU.
I'm Matt Stranick. I'm Coordinator of Educational Technologies and part of the Learning Technology and Innovations Group.
I'm Carolyn Ives. I'm one of the coordinators of Learning and Faculty Development.
My name is Marie Bartlett, and I'm an instructional designer at Thompson Rivers University Open Learning.
Hi, I'm Brenna Clark-Gray, and I'm also a coordinator of Educational Technologies.
So along with that team and the team that's going to be presenting to you today, the OER project we're about to show you is far from complete, but it's already been invested with many, many hours from many people. We'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the people listed here who have contributed their time, expertise, talent, and content to this project.
All right, I'm going to start with a little bit of context so you understand why the project has come to be. So it grew out of the 2019 Course Redesign Institute, which was the first one we offered at Thompson Rivers University. I was organizing it and I was recruiting additional facilitators to help throughout the week. So Marie Bartlett was one who agreed to help. And as she looked at the resources I've been using for the assessments, outcomes and activities, she noticed that many of them had been borrowed from elsewhere. And so we talked about it and I explained that I'd always wanted to create in-house specific resources, but I just never gotten around to doing it. And so she suggested that maybe before we offer it again the following year, we should take some time and create some, specific resources for us. We decided to see if others wanted to help with this, so we held a meeting with many of the people listed on the previous slide that Catherine just showed you, and they agreed to participate in a writing sprint. And at first we were envisioning just a few new handouts and worksheets, but of course the project grew. So we held several full-day writing and brainstorming sprints and eventually decided to build an OER, an open educational resource designed to help faculty, educational developers, and instructional designers with course planning and design. The project was eventually named Cricut, or Course Renewal in a Kit. And here's what the front page looks like. So in addition to resources for creating learning outcomes, learning activities, and assessment, it also offers a contribute feature, which I've just highlighted for you, for people to share their own learning activities and assessments. And while the site's far from finished, we're excited about the direction which it's going. What we're going to show you in this video are a few screenshots like the one in this slide from the OER site in progress. And then we're going to invite you to explore the site, use or repurpose some of its content, as it is an OER with Creative Commons 4.0 license, and maybe even contribute some of your own learning resources so that others can use them as well.
Right, so we tried to divide this into several functional areas that align with the areas of, study and practice from the Course Redesign Institute. So to that effect, we sort of divided into smaller, you could say, task-based groups, each, involved in developing textual resources, media resources, handouts, and the like for each of these areas. So I was involved with the learning outcomes group. My interest with that stemming from my past career as a faculty development officer, within a teaching and learning center. And just as an aside, I think that with this project, one of the things that really stands out for me is that even though we all sort of come from different but complementary areas within our institution, we all are also making contributions within the sphere of curricular development, which I think is really special and really unique within this project. And in that sense, I think it's a really good model just for the way that it is presented, for others to possibly emulate. So I guess specifically with the learning outcomes, what we try to do is really just provide a clear structure, a clear guidance on to how learning outcomes are constructed. And to that end, we surveyed, some very, I guess, if you're outside of the field, you might not necessarily be aware of these resources, but we try to bring in some pretty well-established good and better practices and synthesize those to sort of speak to how to write learning outcomes, examples, and give people sort of a scaffolding opportunity to write their own learning outcomes. So in terms of, I guess, what we might call formative or developmental resources, things that we're hoping to take further, develop further, and possibly, receive some contributions. One technology, the learning technology team that we're all, I think, really excited about and have been using increasingly, I have to say, is H5P interactions. Within our team, we could probably speak a lot to those interactions, those resources. I just feel like there's so much you can do with them. This is just a glimpse, I guess, if you like, of a couple of interactions that were developed while this project was underway. And we are planning to embed these as well as others into the site and hopefully, contribute to a larger initiative involving H5P through this site and other resources as well.
Thank you, Matt. In Cricut's Learning Activities tab, we hope to provide facilitators with space to explore face-to-face, online, and blended learning and related pedagogical strategies. The activities group started with categorizing activities, planning a glossary of terms, pathways, resources, and activity templates. These conversations took the group to an idea of people sharing their online or classroom activities and started to explore the possibility of the Cricut site becoming not only an OER resource, but also an authoring tool and an OER repository. That is how the sharing, search, and contribute function came to the activity tab first, but when the group introduced the concept to the rest of the Cricut tiers, the repository function became a feature for the full site. The search and contribute part of the resource is now categorized into learning outcomes, activities, assessment sections, and a focus section of activities will eventually appear at the bottom of each tab. We are now focusing on starting to populate the Cricut repository through a variety of workshops. One series, called the Learning Design Lab, is designed specifically to have shareable artifact finished at the end of the session so that people could contribute it to Cricut. Now that the repository is finished and ready for sharing, the group is looking forward to working on the section they started in the beginning of the process. There will be a research section featuring further readings and the theoretical and underpinnings and instructional strategies when it comes to using and creating learning activities. A glossary of terms will define a variety of learning activities. And the group is hoping to create a number of pathways as well to respond to learning and teaching challenges. For example, what would be the best pathway to increase student engagement in a learning environment? The pathways would be supported by research and some sample activities from the shared repository. The group will also be working on a sample activity template.
Okay, so the assessment section is maybe the most textually dense section. We had a lot to say, but we try to balance theory and practice of assessment. And the goal was to have a resource that was applicable to folks at all stages of their teaching and learning journey. So whether they were trying to tweak an existing course or arriving newly, freshly in a classroom and wondering where to even start with assessment. So in addition to things like just defining what assessment is and looking at both formative and summative pieces of assessment, we talk about things like academic integrity, and particularly from the perspective of design as an insulating factor in academic integrity. So rather than waiting to have that conversation maybe later in the term. We introduced some theoretical frameworks for thinking about assessment, and we really prioritized what we came to call design considerations. So things to be aware of that are at play in the classroom that you can consider at the design stage of assessment. So things like mental health and anxiety. We talk specifically in that section about exam anxiety and how that plays out for students. Indigenous and intercultural approaches to assessment, and also universal design for learning. What is nice, though, I think about the assessment section is that it really does try to marry all of that theoretical stuff I just talked about with practical just-in-time support. So in the practical side of things, we cover things like accommodations. How do you manage accommodations within a TRU context and also beyond? Things like what makes up an authentic assessment and what might some examples be? When to assess and when not to assess, particularly during the pandemic. I think folks have become more aware of over-assessment as a practice in our institutions, and we tackle that in this space. How to prepare a student to take an assessment and to do so in a way that's fair and reasonable. And I think a nice part of the resource that you don't see in all discussions of assessment is how assessment plays directly into workload and things that especially new instructors can think about as they come to a course and they want to set up the best possible assessment strategies for their students and maintain their own mental health and well-being at the same time.
And so this project has been a collaborative effort, and we've spent a lot of time on the resource trying to do our best to make it useful. And so part of the reason for this presentation at this conference is that we want you to get involved. So we've set up a fun scavenger hunt for you to explore this resource. And if you answer all of the questions, we'll send you a prize in the mail. So all you have to do is go to surveymonkey.ca/r/cricket hunt. So it's a pretty easy URL, but you've got some time right now to copy it down and answer the six questions on this page. So we want you to look around on our Cricut page and take a look and find all of the resources. So what learning outcomes taxonomies are included? Where's the cricket that looks like a dinosaur? What's the name of our intercultural learning resource? A link to the literature that we should include on the learning activities resource page. What page is the roller skating cricket on? So not all of these require research. And then we also want to hear what your thoughts are on this resource. So please remember to include your name and address in the form so we can mail you your prize. And if you go to that SurveyMonkey link, surveymonkey.ca/r/cricket hunt, you'll be able to pick up the direct link to the Cricut page as well. And that's it for our presentation. There's a cute little picture of our dinosaur and roller skating cricket, so you know who to look for. Thank you for attending our presentation. We welcome your thoughts and your contributions. And if you have any questions about the Cricut resource, please email Carolyn at cives@tru.ca.